Morning, Uniteds. Morning, my fellow Jamaicans. As usual, the UIC has to shine a spotlight on what we see as wrong with the system of governance. And we have to remember, our system of governance is what determines most things in our country. It guides us to how we'll develop, or how we're developing as a society, and how we treat with the different challenges of that development. And if you understand history, you'll understand that the choices our leaders make impact everything around us, and therefore determine our success or failure. And the excessive rate of failures that we have, whether it be in education, whether it be in healthcare, whether it be in national security, tells us that the choices our leaders have made so far have all been to our detriment. But let's talk specifically about national security and what happened recently, as highlighted in the newspaper and by Indicom. There are several matters read the constabulary, and these several matters is 214 police officers are involved in 168 cases, are being investigated in 168 different instances for excesses. So let's look again. 214 police officers out of a standing force of what the constabulary described as just over 100,000. Now, those 214 cases are 214 too many. And if you understand policing and police statistics, you'll know why. Let's break it down through the legal pathways for you first. In any country that law and order holds, the burden of proof is on the crown or the accuser. The burden of proof is on the crown or the accuser. What that does, it protects you from an arbitrary state who has lots of powers, including policing powers and powers over the judiciary, from being excessive in the way they treat you. It is also expected that, let's say, the penalty for murder as it exists in a particular state, and necessarily this one, is a capital punishment. That capital punishment can only be exacted after the crown or the accuser or the state has proven that you have committed that crime. From there now, it is expected that agents of the state will be restricted in how they apply that sanction, meaning you won't be taken from the court to the gallows, but rather be given due process to make sure that the system is protected, to make sure that the innocent is protected. And it's also expected that actors of the state won't say, let's save the court the time and execute capital punishment. Now, what we find, and I've mentioned this in my previous video that spoke about the use of force policy that is lacking in the JCF, about the lack of a process and the need to evaluate and train officers. And what we're hearing from Indicom is that they are demanding, suggesting that the constabulary take stock and put significant effort into reducing the instances of police excesses. Not just killings, or we see where police are excessively physically violent to would-be offenders and other persons that they would have come across We see recently where a particular police officer no less than assaulted at least 3 persons, recording him in a public space and in a public building doing his job, which carries no expectation of privacy. And there has been no consequence reported. Alright? None whatsoever, not even a slap on the wrist. Alright? If you look at other jurisdictions, particularly America, for example, you will see where the right of a citizen to record, especially the police in a public space, is protected even by the policing force itself. But here in Jamaica, they just do as they feel. That is untenable. And the OIC, for one, will always say that we will protect the rights of everyone equally. But let's get back to the 214 police officers being investigated across 168 cases, ranging from murder, yes, as in acted outside of the color of law, when a policeman justifiably ends someone's life, it is considered under the color of law, and therefore it is a justifiable action. Outside of that, it is considered murder if it is premeditated, manslaughter if it is not. Now, these cases are over a 13-year period, okay, with 23 of those cases since January. Only 15 of those cases have been brought to a conclusion in the courts. And of course, Indicom is saying they don't have the resources to bring those to finality, court delay, absence of witness, etc. Which again goes back to my other video where I talk about how witnesses are treated in the witness protection program. And I've said all of this, and we'll move on now to point out the UIC's assessment and position on this. The first thing is that the Jamaica Constabulary force as it exists is obsolete, regardless of how many doctors of letters or legal scholars are placed as commissioner, because the JCF has what is known as esprit de corps, or the spirit of the corps, right? An organizational culture, one that is now seen and known to be corrupt, one that is now seen and known to cause corruption, and that firstly has to change. And the UIC will create a Jamaica Police Service, one that will be equipped with the latest in investigative tools, one that will be assisted with the latest access to technology, forensic technology, in forensic suites, to well-equipped forensic suites on either side of the island that will provide autopsy, DNA services, fingerprint, trace evidence collection and analysis, with a strong chain of custody which won't contaminate the evidence and makes it reliable in court, and that will extend to cutting-edge technology like voice analysis, metadata analysis. And I think I'm giving away too much of the president's trump card. Don't get me wrong, some of that is being used, but it is not fully developed. For example, DNA analysis, we have to send that somewhere, but we have capable scientists. Those biological specimens do degrade or get contaminated and unexaminable and return adverse findings from time to time, as opposed to if it was being done right here. Material analysis, ballistic analysis, and stuff like those, the same applies. The sooner you get it done, the better conditions the evidence is stored in and transported under, gives it more integrity for examination and therefore a better conclusion as to the possible source or a comparison to find the source. So the long and short of it is this: we need a better policing service, not multiple. And the government has been lying to us by saying, okay, we have created MOCA, but they created MOCA and give it a very narrow mandate, and we have not heard from MOCA since. Very few arrests and even fewer prosecution. Right? While the main body of the constabulary force continues to run amok, to continue to rack up accusations of extrajudicial killings, especially of young men, so brazen that it is now being accused, they are being accused of doing it in front of families, because they see where the courts allow them to act with impunity, to act in a manner that is unbecoming. And I'm not defending those hoodlums who run wild and threaten the greater peace. What I'm demanding is a maturity from our police and our government as a whole in creating a legal framework that will stand up to scrutiny. I'm tired of the policing that is reflective of the backramasa mentality. I remember when I was a young man, you would hear that training for constabulary officers, especially in law, would be 6 months. Now it is reported to be 2 weeks. That is what I heard from an officer, first-hand account from a recently graduated officer. 2 weeks. Okay? That is not enough to teach a police officer about the myriad of laws that exist, or the rights of the people, and how to treat a citizen with respect and dignity. But the UIC has a technological solution to that. I won't give away any more of the UIC's plan because they get borrowed liberally. I'll hold that one in. But just to highlight, as a people, we deserve better. And that's why community policing is one thing that we believe strongly in. We believe that if you're from the community, you'll know the good actors and the bad actors. You'll be in a better position to deal with your fellow citizens in a constructive way. You will bridge gaps instead of creating gaps. You will be able to create an environment of citizen and police cooperation. So let's seriously think about that. And we are so used to hearing that there's a bad guy down the road, send the police to kill him. But do we know that it's a lie? Alright? I remember the argument or the accusation that that one specific young man that was killed in a police operation a few years back, while he was in the presence of known men of ill repute, he ended up there incidentally. I don't know how to justify that or how to clarify that, but the long and short of it, it was said that he was not one of the bad men. He went to visit someone and got caught in the raid and subsequently died. Now we're gonna have people say, they're a bad man company, you get what I forget. But we all say that because we believe that if it doesn't affect us, then we are free to be callous. And I can also remind you about the prominent accountant that was killed in his house through his locked grill by members of the security forces, who, after they were eventually charged for that killing, presented immunity certificate presented after the fact by the security minister at the time to protect them from prosecution. Okay? Which is total foolishness. The matter should have gone through an inquest or some sort of investigation to determine if they acted under the color of law. And if they acted under the color of law, then there would be no need for an immunity certificate, because they acted legally.
One Jamaica TV.